So everything was just covered in red paint and it just looked like blood everywhere. If we destroyed every oil refinery in Russia, the war would end tomorrow. Drones started around about November, December last year. We're just doing Lego for adults, as I like to call it. We've hit a $25 million anti-air system. We're hitting another tank or another artillery piece and saving Ukrainian lives. I'm in love with Ukraine, yeah. It's my country now. I feel Ukrainian.
You're watching UATV English. It's Bravehearts. I'm Danichenko. Hello and welcome. And today, Braveheart and big friend of Ukraine, Richard, volunteer from Great Britain. Hello and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Richard, you were in Bucha, you were in Kherson region, Donetsk region. You visited lots of cities of Ukraine, which suffered a lot from Russians. What kind of things you've seen you'll never forgot?
One of the most memorable moments was walking through Bucha just after its liberation and seeing all of the Russian footprints on the front doors of the Ukrainians there, knowing that meant that their door was kicked in and they were dragged out and either shot or taken somewhere else to be murdered and tortured. And that was, July time when I was first in Ukraine. And down in Kherson, I went and saw a babusia whose home was only destroyed a few hours earlier by a Russian mortar. The roof was destroyed and her husband was buried under the rubble. And he suffocated to death because she wasn't strong enough to dig him out of the rubble. And we were there when the building was still partially smouldering, and there was a can of red paint that was in the attic when the mortar hit. So everything was just covered in red paint and it just looked like blood everywhere. And that was absolutely horrifying and harrowing, seeing someone that's just lost their partner to Russian terrorism.
What is it like to see such kind of atrocities? What is it like to see such kind of horror? Because have you ever been in such a situation? You are not a person of the war. No. It was very new things for you.
Yeah.
What was it like for you?
At first, incredibly life-changing and moving every moment of this war, but now I've just become so numb to seeing death and destruction, and it's just normal now to be walking around Kharkiv, for instance, and seeing shrapnel holes in every single building, whereas before I would have been shocked by that, or I would have been shocked by Russian war crimes and atrocities. When now it's just the only thing that still destroys me is when I see young children that have died, or women that have died in these horrible missile attacks, and you see a bicycle with a woman laying next to it on the floor, and they covered her completely apart from her red shoes, and it stays with you forever.
Why you decided to help Ukraine? Because when you decided to do this, you hadn't seen already all these things, all these atrocities. You decided to help before this.
I had decided before that I was coming to Ukraine, but seeing the atrocities in Bucha and seeing all of these graves being dug, one of the original reasons as to why I came over, probably naively now, was to actually take over from the guys that were digging the graves in Bucha. Because I just saw how tired, and it was just constant grave after grave after grave, and these poor Ukrainians were having to dig these graves of their loved ones and the local people that they knew. And that was when I had booked my flight and I was coming over, and it was seeing all of this on TV about Bucha. But I had the thing that made me decide to come over initially was Zelensky's speech outside of the parliament. I think on the first or second night, saying none of us have left Ukraine yet.
And what was your first thought? First thought when you understood that there is war in Ukraine where you were going to travel, as to visit as before the war?
Yeah, I before even the day of the invasion, it was all over the news in the West. So we were watching for weeks in advance, just seeing the tanks getting closer and closer to the border. And I remember when they were setting up the blood and medical stations for the Russians near the border, everyone said, you don't do that in a training exercise. And that was the moment that it was like, okay, Russia is going to invade. And yeah, then I just watched it 24/7. Even when I was sleeping, I had my phone playing next to me with everything that was happening in Ukraine. Just waking up every few hours to see the status of what was happening. So yeah, even before it started, I was paying attention, but shameably not, 4 years ago or 10 years ago. It was only at the beginning of this current invasion.
And what was your first action when you understood that, yeah, full-scale invasion started?
I contacted my landlord immediately and I said, I know I've just started renting this place, but I'm going to Ukraine. So, I'm going to have to cancel my contract that I was meant to be in Spain for the next few years. And I cancelled it and, packed up all of my belongings, went to England to say goodbye to my family, and then came to Ukraine.
Alex Trench. Давай.
Was your mom crying when you were leaving?
She said to me, you're not going to Ukraine. And I said, okay, I'm going to Krakow then. Because she was saying this like the day before or a few hours before the flight. And I said, okay, I'll just stay in Krakow. And my mum believes, she doesn't believe I can lie, So she was just like, okay, he's going to Krakow, all will be fine. And then, yeah, I flew into Krakow, was there for a couple of days, searching around to see if there was anywhere that I could help. And I met some people helping refugees. And then realized I was of no use in Krakow, so immediately then headed over to Lviv.
And when she realized, she knows, now she
Yeah,
knows,
so
yeah,
I flew back probably 2 weeks into my very first trip just for 2 or 3 days so that I could tell my mum I've actually been in Ukraine. Because I didn't want to tell her over the phone because, yeah, I didn't know how she would react and, yeah. And then she said, but I'm glad you're back and you're not going back to Ukraine. And I said, yes, Mum, I'm flying back, tomorrow. And she realized she couldn't stop me and said, okay. And now she fully understands. But
you communicate now, she supports you.
Yeah. Like even in Kharkiv when there are missiles falling, just after I would video call my mum and I'd say, look, we're just having lunch in a nice restaurant, so don't worry about it, like all is fine. Because if I told her the realities of like there were just 11 Iskander missiles that fell around us, she would then have a heart attack or worry so much. So it's best to just say, look, here's a beautiful restaurant in Kharkiv and all is fine.
Speaking about beautiful life, you mentioned Spain, you had a perfect life, you were enjoying your life. What was it like before the war?
Great. Not very fulfilling, but I was on a beach every day. I was playing beach volleyball, drinking beer and eating pizza on the beach. We would order takeaway pizza to the beach. And that was like my everyday. My break from working for so many years was just going to Spain and traveling. And it was... Anyone else would look at it and go, it sounds like the perfect life.
Perfect life,
I
really.
would, yeah, I would love that. And yeah, it was really, really nice. But I was completely and 100% living for myself in Spain.
And now 101% you're living for this country, for Ukrainians, you're volunteering, and drones is your main aspect of your work. And I think that every drone that you gave to military, I think that one saved life, it's for sure, or maybe much more lives. Tell about your volunteering from the very beginning. What were you doing at the first years of the war and when you started to work with drones?
Yeah, so for the first year, it was there was still some military aspects. There was making food rations for the military. And then I was in Erdpin and Bucha region, kind of Hostomel, rebuilding homes with an organization called Dobrobat. And then after that, we started going to kind of disaster zones across the front lines. So such as when the Nova Kachovka, dziękuję. When that dam was blown up, we were instantly in the van with 2 speedboats being pulled behind us to go save like dogs and cats. So it changed from, you know, being a Lviv-based person to now visiting every oblast in Ukraine, finding people in Kherson that needed sustenance, so that didn't have any food because the Russians had destroyed everything around them, every shop, any chance of them working for money. And these people are so poor they couldn't drive 2 towns over to find a shop that hadn't been destroyed. Yeah.
And why drones? When and why?
Drones started around about November, December last year. We were looking for like the next way to make some kind of impact in the war, and I had lots of foreign volunteers around me that were also looking in ways that they could help. And a wonderful friend called Ernest, my local Ukrainian, he said, let's start building drones. And he brought a pilot from the very front lines, one of the best pilots in the country, who taught us exactly every aspect of building the drones. And we just learned from him, and we moved into this building in December, January time, and we were in the back room building like 1 or 2 little drones at a time, and building and disassembling and rebuilding, because we didn't have the money to be able to like make, you know, 10 drones at that point. And we were still figuring out, okay, is this going to be the right thing? Can we do it? And now you've seen the scale of this place. A lot of drones are being built now. So
at this time we hear just making drones, this process now.
Yeah.
How many drones you sent to Ukrainian army?
So that have been sent off to the front. I believe it's around about 1650, 1700. But we have, we're coming up to the 2000 benchmark. But yeah, we have like 150, 200 that are going off in the next couple of days with a friend of ours to the front. So yeah, soon to hit 2,000 drones, which is very, very cool.
2,000 saved lives.
Yes, I mean,
or
yeah,
maybe more.
I mean, if you hit an artillery piece of the Russian Federation, how many lives is that saved? Is that 50 Ukrainians? Is that 100? And that's one thing I'm trying to work out at the moment is how many lives does a drone actually save when you take out a tank or something else? Yeah.
But it's all about money. You need lots of money just to make these drones and to send these drones. What is the cost of one drone? Where you get money?
Yeah, so what we say on Twitter, which is where I talk about these drones every day, is it's around about $300. So 300 euros for a drone. The 7 inches are slightly less than that, and the 10 inches are slightly more than that. But it's around about the 300 euro figure. Once you take a 7 and a 10 and put them together and divide by 2, you get 300 euros. So yeah, that's just the parts cost. We're not talking about like the soldering or the tape or anything else. It's just the parts cost of the drone itself. Yeah, and not the RPG either. So parts cost for the drone and also the battery on top, which is a very expensive part of the whole drone.
Who supports you usually on your Twitter account? What kind of support you see in comments?
So initially it was kind of all around the world was the support, and I'm honestly talking about like 30, 40 different countries donating every day towards everything that I've been doing in Ukraine. But now it's heavily a German and American community. We have 2 incredible people, a guy called Sergei Sumleny and Brennpunkt.ua. And their German community has been fundraising for most of the drones that you see here for the past, probably 3 or 4 months now. And they would do large fundraisers with me. We would do live streams, and the last one we raised $250,000 in 24 hours. just from speaking on Twitter and on YouTube, which was really, really cool. And that's meant we've managed to build, hundreds and hundreds of drones off of that campaign.
Do you really realize, and when I talk to people who help Ukraine, to military guys, and I say, you know that you're a brave heart. Oh, no, I'm not a brave heart. There are lots of other brave hearts. No. Do you really realize that you're a brave heart that helps Ukraine, that helps to fight against Russian invasion, and you do really a lot? And what you're proud of most of all?
I think I'm probably most proud of the volunteer community that we have, that over this past 2.5 years, it's brought together so many amazing international volunteers and Ukrainians that want to help win the war. So I think, I'm most proud of bringing together this community of people that want to help without anything for themselves. But we're all just doing our small part, and it's the guys on the front that are risking their lives. We're relatively safe back here in Lviv, and we're just doing Lego for adults, as I like to call it. So,
Lego for adults that saves life. I know that you and me absolutely sure that Ukraine will win. It's just the question when and how. And how you imagine this victory? What is going to be like?
I think we have to completely destroy what is the Russian Federation in terms of they can't have any finances or military power to be able to continue this war, because if the war ended tomorrow, they would still have the military and they'd still have enough money to do it all again. So this is what will be the progression of us in the future, is going from the things that are killing the Russians, which doesn't really make much of a difference because they will just throw another Russian towards us in Ukraine, more towards taking out oil refineries, because if we destroyed every oil refinery in Russia, the war would end tomorrow. Because then the taps are turned off and they realize they have no money and no future, because they are the world's petrol station. They're a gas state. So I think that's how the war ends, is financially crippling and militarily defeating Russia. I don't think it's going to come from negotiations or peace settlements. That will just cause pain further down the line for Ukrainians and the rest of Europe.
And what about situation now? Speaking about Russian drones, their quality of their drones, etc.
They're very good at mass manufacturing, so they're building a lot more than we are in like factory settings, but we're taking a lot more care. So all of ours are made out of carbon fiber, where there's like a really roughly cut aluminium, and their quality assurance isn't as good. So therefore, it means that less of them are hitting the target, but they have more of them. They're going down the route of more is better rather than focusing on a quality product. But we do look at some of the stuff that they send and go, hey, maybe we will copy some aspects of that, especially how they save so much money. They have very, very cheap planes that we're now looking at copying, which is just foam on bits of very thin wood with a motor, and then you strap a bomb to it and you're making a kamikaze plane for roughly the same cost as a kamikaze drone. They're just industrial about it. And they've switched over to a wartime economy where sometimes I feel like Ukraine hasn't, and the rest of Europe hasn't, and the rest of the world actually. No one's really on a war footing where every single business is converted over to manufacturing for the war.
You and team showed us a drone yesterday. Describe this drone, how it differs from Russian drones. It's faster, it's more quality, has better quality. Describe it.
So what you saw yesterday, that was a 7-inch drone, and normally that's about 1.5 kilograms of explosives that it'll carry with it. We always use the highest quality components, whether that's a good quality carbon fiber frame that's nice and stiff. Always using a Max Solar VTX so that we have a very strong video signal for the guys. It's just a well-made, well-soldered drone The soldering's very important, and you'll see out there how much time and effort we put into making sure that everyone gets it completely perfect, so that it's a masterpiece, because that also improves transmission, whether that's a video or radio transmission or camera feed. It's all down to those very minute connections. So that's why it's so important, because it increases the odds of our drones actually making it to the target, because they can see a bit better, it responds a bit better when it's flying.
When you tell about drones, you are such a perfect expert in this, but you haven't ever been a drone operator before. You haven't ever learned this case at all. How much time took to learn these drones?
So I'd probably say it was a couple of months in terms of just building them, but then it's like 3 months on top of that of perfecting it. So you can build one, but you'll miss all of the stuff that it took us 3 months to figure out, such as you can do a screw up wrong on a frame, and then therefore the whole stability of the thing is off, or you'd buy slightly the wrong component, or you won't change over a specific wire that they supply with the piece of equipment, and you think, well, obviously you use the one they supplied, but no. I can't tell you exactly what one that is, but we swap it out on every single drone, and that drastically improves the video quality. I've just given a hint away there. So every single bit you can build, and people can very easily do it at home, but it's getting that quality assurance and testing down so that the drone has the best chance.
When you tell me about drones, your eyes are just like fire. Yeah, you're so much interested in this case. Now you are so much interested in everything you do, and the main goal when you making these drones, what do you think about this? When you give it to military, what do you think about that? There will be saved life of Ukrainians. There will be the victory of Ukraine will be closer. There will be Russians killed that try to fight against Ukraine. What are your thoughts? All this.
Literally all of the above. I mean, obviously the number one is the amount of equipment that can be destroyed, which will therefore save the lives of our guys. Just the Russian on the end dying as part of it is just a byproduct of what we have to do to win the war. You have to destroy this Russian equipment. You have to destroy their logistics. You have to do these things. Otherwise, it would just be more and more coming towards us.
What did drones destroy?
So many things. We've hit a $25 million anti-air system. We've destroyed multiple tanks. I think the count is like 8 or 9 tanks now. So many artillery pieces. I think over 10 different artillery pieces. So we're talking tens and tens of millions of dollars of destroyed equipment with just a few $1,000s worth of drones. So it's definitely making an impact, and because we see these impacts, it drives us on to keep going, to not give up. Me and Tim had to wait, I think, 6 months before we had our first ever tank hit. And once we got that video, we were like, cool, that's good. Like we gotta have to keep going now, because it was so motivating knowing that little thing took out a tank. And then it makes you feel like, okay, we're not just sat in a dim building, building these for no reason. We're actually doing something now. And it just took so long, but eventually we got that result, and now it's just every couple of days now we're hitting another tank or another artillery piece and saving Ukrainian lives, which is really cool.
What volunteering changed in you, if changed? What living in Ukraine changed you?
It made me realize that I'll once never again work for a company, and that for the rest of my life, this is what I will be doing. If it's not in Ukraine, it will be in some other country at some point. And it's kind of like addictive helping and volunteering. And it would feel strange now to go and work for money or something like that. It's a way of life rather than just something that you do for a short while. And I think anyone that's been volunteering for 6 months, a year, their brain switches over and they go, yep, this is my life now. I'll never go back to a desk or a
But
job.
aren't you afraid of there is war in this country? Shelling, bombing.
I've been around so much of it that, yeah, you learn to sleep through the artillery down in Jonobajivka. Yeah, I was in Kyiv the other week, and hearing a Patriot system go off, that is bloody scary. So there's definitely still things that are terrifying, and when a rocket hits nearby, it's terrifying. But like the people of Kharkiv, they're so resilient, and even though there are these rockets every day, it just becomes part of being Ukrainian and living in Ukraine. It's normal now, as they say, when some explosion goes off and you tweak a little bit and they go, oh, normal now, it's just a grenade or just an artillery shell, and yeah, and then it carries on. So yeah, I'd say the fear has gone a long time ago, but yeah, trenches I could never get used to. They're just hell on earth, and I don't understand how our guys spend more than 5 minutes in a trench. Yeah. But Lviv's nice.
Yes, yeah. Agree with you. Are there some things that scare you?
Losing the war, I guess. Understanding that would lead to the genocide of many, many more tens of, not hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians. And that terrifies me because Ukrainians are my family. And yeah, I've seen all of these people across the whole country, and knowing that if we fail, the Russians will just push through and kill, murder, rape anyone they can, and there will be no more Ukraine, and that terrifies me.
And they won't stop in Ukraine. They will go on, they will go to other European countries. And we really realize this. Just protecting Ukraine, it's like, now Ukraine like a shield for Europe. Protecting Ukraine, it's like protecting Europe.
100%.
You know, some people say that protecting Ukraine is like stopping the World War they start. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly Russia's goals and aims. They want to rebuild an empire, and the way you do that is by conquering what they still believe to be theirs, the old Soviet empire. So yeah, they've made it very clear they would take back all the Baltics and go into Poland, and there's not hiding that. It's every night on their main television channel they talk about the destruction of all of Europe. So if that wasn't true, then it wouldn't be on their number one TV channel station, and yeah. So yeah, I fully believe that Europe will be next, and I think Europe is being very naive to not worry about that aspect. They feel too protected by NATO. Yeah.
But why Europe isn't afraid now? It's only because protection of NATO, or because of, I don't know, maybe Russian propaganda. Europe tries to stop Russian propaganda in their countries, but nevertheless, in this or other case, Russian propaganda is present in European countries. Why Europeans are not afraid enough?
I think you said it exactly. It's because of this paid Russian propaganda that they'll be pushing to them on social media and every news outlet that Russia's ambitions are only to, have this small slither of like Ukraine, and then they'll stop, and then that will be it. And that's what they're paying, hundreds of millions of dollars to try and get the message across. But Poland and the Baltics know that is not the case. That is why they've all hugely increased their military spending, because they can see what is written, what will happen next. They know they know what the Soviet Empire was before, and they understand that they're not going to stop.
I'd like to ask you, just watching in this camera and talking to people in your country, explaining you're a person who are here from the very beginning of the war, you're a person who protects Ukrainians, who helped to fight against Russian invasion. Explain why to people who still don't maybe realize, don't maybe understand why Europe, Great Britain, why other countries should protect Ukraine.
Because they are us. It's stupid, this idea that someone's 1,000 kilometers away from you and therefore their life does not matter. Where do you draw the line? your next door neighbor, the next town over, what will you allow to be destroyed before you stand up and say no more? And Ukraine is our neighbor, and they're more like us than probably any other nation out there. So yeah, you need to come here, you need to meet these people and realize why they should not die, because we can't be bothered to pay a little bit more on our gas prices.
Can I say that you are in love in Ukraine?
I'm in love with Ukraine, yeah. It's my country now. I feel Ukrainian.
How it's correct to say you're British, Ukrainian, British? How you feel now?
I don't know. I think I'm just Ukrainian at this point, but yeah, I don't even know when I'll next go to England or Britain, but yeah, I'd stand up for the UK too, but yeah, I feel like I've converted now to being Ukrainian. Just need to learn the language next.
I think you know Ukrainian perfect, because якщо я буду щось питати вас зараз українською, я думаю...
Так, дуже розумію.
Все. А це, можливо, розуміння, можливо, воно ще приходить з коханням.
Кохання.
Кохання.
Love, right? Kохання, there we are. I know a bit.
About love, yeah?
About love. No, not much about love. Love for country, you know, but yeah.
What are you going to do after the victory? If you say that you love two countries, yeah, your homeland, you love now Ukraine, and really your heart now is here. What are you going to do after the victory?
Figure out what is next. Yeah, because Ukraine needs to be rebuilt. You know, we have to forget that really the end of the war is actually just the beginning of the recovery and the next stage of helping Ukraine is. You know, we'll have so many mentally affected people that need rehabilitation, physically, mentally, and whole cities and everything that need rebuilding. So,
speaking about your goals now with bronze, next your steps, what you wanted to do, just 2,300, I don't know, maybe there you have some numbers, some count of these drones. What are the results you want?
To make more of an impact in the war. Yes, what we are doing is affecting directly on the battlefield, but I want to be taking more actions that will actually help to end the war. So, such as trying to figure out ways that we can destroy infrastructure within Russia, targets that I believe will actually make a larger difference. Because it's great, yeah, to have an effect on the battlefield, but if I want the war to end, I need to think more and understand what the next thing is. Так.
Дякую. Thank you. Thank you, Richard, for everything you're doing here in Ukraine. It was UATV English, Brave Hearts. See you.